Well, good morning, everybody. It is another Thursday and another edition of Elevating You, Reaching Your Peak. And we have brand new, inspiring, we hope it's inspiring, career growth conversations each and every week on this platform, the Facebook page for Kann Advisory Group. So thanks for joining us. I'm Kraig Kann and Mike Mooney alongside. We always enjoy this time. And Mike, it's great to see you, buddy. How you doing today?
Great to see you too, man. I'm doing great. It's been a busy week so far, but I don't know how you are down in Florida, but I know up here in Charlotte we've got rain coming in. So definitely keeping our thoughts and prayers for the people who are experiencing these storms right now here as well as out west with the fires. But man, it's always good just to have time with you and with the great folks who join us, have some good conversations.
Yeah, it is. And I know last week we had Jill. Jill's for everybody that follows us on a week-to-week basis. Jill's off this week, and her son, big baseball player, had a little mishap, so she's tending to that. She's got some things going on with the Today Show. I also want to just take a moment. I don't know about you, and obviously I've known Kent Scornia for a long time, who joined us last week. And for those of you watching right now, go to my YouTube channel, go to Mike's pages as well, and find last week's episode of Elevating You. It was really good. Yeah. He had so much to say, and it was super impressive. So I encourage you to do that. He's the CEO and president of Trilogy in St. Louis, and in these uncertain times, he shared a lot about what he deals with as a leader and how he helps inspire his people to do better things. Now, Mike and I, truth be told, we are very much on the same page as far as what we talk about each week, right? Yeah. We focus on brand. Now, last time, in talking about what we were discussing with Kent, the topic was taking control in uncertain times and putting you on top of your client list. It was a really interesting topic because not that we're control freaks, but I think in this situation, I don't think anybody feels like they truly have their hand on the steering wheel in a firm grip. I think you would agree with that, right?
No, I would 100%. And that's the challenge, right? In times when we feel like we're losing control, we end up trying to assert control in other places of our lives. And that's not always healthy. And that could be in relationships or in work or in the words we use or things like that. And what I thought was just so great about Kent's conversation last week and the messages he brought in, man, I got to tell you, he's an impressive dude. I mean, I get it. I mean, he's running, a global financial services company. And you think about that industry and the uncertainty they're facing. And more importantly, he even put it on the line. He's like, look, every dollar is somebody's dream. I never thought.
That's a great line.
I never, ever thought about it that way, but it's so true. I started thinking about my own portfolio going, yeah, that's a lot. I got some dreams in there. And so to be on the tip of the spear, like he is with his teams, to be, managing that for people, their dreams. I just thought the way that he approached, his day to day with, the dreams and his focus and being intentional. I mean, like I said, he was just an impressive leader, but more so as I was listening, I just felt like I was talking to a friend, just during this and having a great conversation.
Yeah, no doubt. And as we do each week, and again, we'll share the ways that you can ask us questions. By the way, I want to say something too. I'm going to throw to the question here in just a second from Minnesota. But a lot of people comment on what they're watching. And hello to everybody. And thank you for saying hi. And thank you for spending time with us, investing in this little conversation that we try to do each and every week. But feel free to ask questions. That's where we're getting a lot of stuff from. And it gives us topics that we can talk about the next go around, or certainly to do something really special in this episode. So here's the question, the one that I pulled from last week. This is Kristen in Minnesota.
Hello, Kristen.
And she said, to be honest, everything seems uncertain. And I would agree with that. The biggest thing in searching that I'm doing is searching for confidence in what I do. Okay. How do I focus on my current job and doing well while putting my brand on display and assessing other job opportunities that might be out there. In other words, we both know that if you're going to put your brand on display, it requires some work and some time. And you don't want people knowing you're doing all that. You got to put yourself out there to try to get that next job or, succeed in the current job. Really good question. Let me just run through one more time. To be honest, everything seems uncertain. The biggest thing I'm searching for is confidence in what I do. How do I focus on my current job and doing it well while putting my brand on display and assessing other potential jobs? There you go. I'll let you go first.
There's a lot to unpack on that, man.
Yeah.
So I would go back to perhaps the mindset and how the question was constructed, because that tells me a little bit about the way that she's thinking about this, which is if I do this, how do I showcase that?
Mm-hmm.
And then how do I look for the next job? It's like three different pieces. In my mind, I always like to figure out how can I create what I call gravity? How can I create like the things around me through the work that are going to draw opportunities to me or the right people or things of that nature? And that some people might think that's a little bit of woohoo and manifestation and being intentional, which I do believe in. However, in this case, I'm talking about doing the work. So I don't think it has to be how do I do the work or how do I build my brand? I think it's you can use the work you're currently doing to showcase how your brand is coming to life in a way that's delivering value and impact to your team, your clients, the organization as a whole, which then, as you're doing that and getting that work out there, building the brand, showcasing the work, showcasing the team, what's being done, right? Opportunities can start being presented to you, whether that's internal for promotions, maybe, who knows? I mean, that could be an option. Maybe she does such a great job. They're like, holy cow, we need you running this division, not just this team. Or it could actually give you the visibility through your platforms that another company is like, we need someone like her.
There you go. There you go. I think you nailed it. I think these are not separate things. And I think any fear you might have in putting your brand on display or doing things to showcase your brand, who you are, your achievements, your successes, keep it in proper perspective. What value do you bring to others? Not, hey, look at me. There's a big difference there.
That's it.
Okay. So if you post things or you work on putting your brand out there for other people to see, think about the positives that can be for your organization you currently look and work for. I think that's really important. It will elevate you in the eyes of others if you post and think about the right things that you want out there for everybody to see. It doesn't suggest, hey, I'm looking for a job. Hey, I'm looking to get out of here. No, it's basically saying, hey, let me share some of the success stories that we've had within our organization. I'm just going to be the one to do it. So don't worry about putting your brand on display. Just do it in the right way. Take care of it. And yes, you can assess other jobs and other careers. That's just simply called networking. Consider that a research project. Keep your eyes and ears open to see what's out there. Now, if your current job and the employer that you have is a little bit on, we'll say thin ice, that's a different story. Be careful with that. Maybe you need to look a little harder, but really focus on yourself is what I would say.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something there, Kraig, that's really important too when we talk about your brand and how you showcase that. I'm a big believer in style, and the style and the way in which we interact and operate with the world and the people around us. And I think we've all seen examples of and can probably point to in our social media feeds or in our network of people when you see a post and right out of the gates, it just screams, me. The ego is jumping out there. I really believe that the people who build the brands or the better ones that stand out and that people can relate to are the ones that talk about what was accomplished and showing gratitude and actually celebrating other people along the way. Look, if you're putting that out there, that you were part of this team, then clearly you were part of that team. You don't have to have the spotlight on you the entire time.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I totally agree with that. I'll add one more thing, because sometimes I'll be honest, I post a lot of stuff on social media. You do as well. And we post about oh, we made this speaking engagement, or here's what somebody says about us, or I post some quotes that companies might have said about the experience that they've had with a Kann advisory workshop.
Yep.
But I make sure that if that's the image that's out there, that maybe has a quote on it. I mean, I'm very transparent. I put that stuff out there because I want people to understand what it feels like to be in there, right? What the experience is like, what other people are saying about it. However, in the post, in what I'm writing about that, I try to provide value. I try to give people a few tips. I try to give people some of the things that I would say in that workshop or in that keynote speech. So it's not, here we go, flashing lights promotion. It's kind of a double. It's a double. It's a little bit, here's what somebody says about the experience. You could experience that too, but also, hey, here you go. Here's what I think. Here's what can help you. Here's what I would offer if I was standing on the stage.
Well, and it's giving, right? It's the idea of
giving to others. Absolutely.
As well. You know, Jeff Patterson, he just wrote in on the Facebook Live feed about, you know, the power of online networking, and you know, I believe that it's true today, especially in the virtual space. We've got to be focused on the online networking. Part of that networking, there was recognizing that people are going to check out your profile. They're going to check out your social footprint before they want to pursue or engage or go to that next step with you.
Yeah.
You know, I like it. You actually said a while back, and I like this a lot, Kraig, and maybe you can play it back because I probably won't do it justice, but it's around the idea of go back to your last 5 or so social media posts and think about, like, what are those posts saying about you? Yep,
that's it. I say that all the time. Check your last 10, see if there's, because 5 doesn't usually give it, but 5 could work too. Go back and look at your last 10 tweets, your last 10 posts on LinkedIn, your last 10 posts on Instagram. Is there a common thread? Are you delivering a consistent message? To me, that's really important. So thanks to Kristen for that. Now, on to the topic today. And I think this is a fun one. We can go in a lot of different directions. Now, I want to have full disclosure here, folks. I told Mike, hey, I want yours. And I told Mike, I'll do mine. And what's going to be really interesting here is where we go with this. And I think you'll see something interesting. We want to talk today about one career skill that you need in your toolbox as soon as possible. So if you're going to invest time in what you're doing, this is what we think you should think about. That's the way I would phrase this. Now, I also have here on the screen for you, don't sit idle during idle times, meaning here we are. There are a lot of us that are working from home. I am so sick of the walls around me and sitting in this office. I want to be on an airplane. I want to be in a conference room, on a stage, or in front of a group, as I'm sure you do as well. That's where we get our energy and feel like we're helping people. So one career skill you need ASAP. Now, why does that matter? Okay, here's one of the reasons why it matters, and we'll share a couple here today. This one, Mike, the environment that we're working in, it is not the same. It has, oh boy, here's a good word to your book, reputation shift. It has shifted. Take it away.
Absolutely. And I think that's somewhat of the understated obvious. All right. What we're living in today is that we all recognize on so many levels, personally, professionally, emotionally, physically, psychologically, right? I mean, there are enormous shifts that are happening around us. We have to take a step back and look at where the areas in our life, especially as we're thinking and talking about people's brands, or we're talking about your career, and recognizing that the workplace environments are shifting as well. And I think that was really where the genesis of this topic came from this week, is to sit there and think, okay, so if we were to think about what would be those key skills to have today, what is that one that we each believe we should have? We really wanted to take that approach. And I love that, because it really made me think and start going through. I had probably like a list of 10, Kraig, and recognizing the time that we have clearly, but also that we want to focus on one. It was kind of tough, whittling that down, because I really feel like there are so many skills that we can all be, either sharpening our saw if we currently have them, or investigating, or, with so many different sources of video and things to learn about. Gosh, this is such an important topic today.
It is. It is. So here we go.
Okay.
I'm going to put mics there for everybody first. And Mike, this is it. Have at it. Your one thing as we sharpen up our skill set and sharpen up our talents and where we want to go. Your one thing is storytelling.
Storytelling. Absolutely. And that was, gosh, something that I have always believed in. If I go back to my early career, and I started in motorsports on the agency side at a public relations and marketing firm. From day one, it was really drilled into us that it's about telling the story. It's about taking something that people may not think is interesting, or you yourself may not think is interesting, and framing it up in such a way that you would actually get people to think about that topic differently, feel about that topic, and then actually do something as a result of it. And that to me, I'll share a little story. When I first started out at that agency, and trust me, when I started, I was out managing a warehouse. I was stuffing press kits. I was making mail runs. Very much starting at the ground up. But as I sat in meetings and learned the craft, a gentleman by the name of Tom Cotter, who was my mentor, who owned the agency, he would have us go into the conference room, Kraig, and he'd put, and I'm just going to use the mug as an example, but he would put like a bottle of water in the middle of the table and say, tell me 10 different things about this bottle of water, which made us actually have to look at what we think is just this bottle, but we'd look at it from underneath, we'd look at it from on top, right? And that was a great exercise that got us to looking at the story, not just from one dimension. So for me, and for so many people today, if you aren't able to articulate your story, whether you are, in a job or you're looking for a job, you have to understand the power and the emotional connection of storytelling. So that's why that's my number one.
Yeah, people don't connect with brands first. They connect with people first. And the way we engage people is through storytelling. If you tell me a story, I immediately might drop what I'm doing and go, "Well, this is pretty cool. Let me hear this." That's how people, tune in, if you will. That's how you grab them through your story. So here are some points that you wanted to add about being a power storyteller.
Absolutely. And I believe that really, it starts within our DNA. It starts with, way back in the caveman days, all the way through time. If you think about the way that cultural connections were developed, and how lore, and legend and values were passed down through generations, it was through storytelling. And that, I believe with all my heart, is a true shared human connection. That stories do something that really nothing else can do, and that is evoke emotion. That is to bring people closer in a shared human experience in some way. So, it's the human connection that storytelling brings to us. It actually also makes you more memorable. I mean, who doesn't? Kraig, would you like to be more memorable?
Absolutely. I think everybody should want to be. Yeah. You want people to remember that you were there.
And they'll remember it by the story. They'll remember it by the connection and the emotion. I'll share with you, earlier this week, I had a conversation with a gentleman that I spoke with earlier in the year, probably like it was pre-COVID, which feels like years ago, but it was earlier this year. And he said to me, Mike, we haven't spoken in probably 9 months or so. He said, Mike, I talked to close to 1,000 different companies and people during the course of the year. He's in investments and venture capitals and incubators and things like that. He said, but Mike, I remember our conversation. I remember that last conversation we had. And that was another reason why he said, I wanted to get back on the phone with you to reconnect. right? So again, it makes you memorable. It gives you this sort of like emotional stake in the ground, And the last one here is we have to really recognize that there's this balance within storytelling. And I heard this phrase and I love it, that stats tell, but stories sell. All right. The statistics are great because they help frame up and ground people in the issue or the challenge or even the opportunity that's in front of them. But that alone is not going to drive people to action, right? You have to then bring it back to a story that's relevant, right? That you can speak to from your own experience, that helps bring this to life, that helps bring people closer in. So I'll share with you an example of this, Kraig, is the work that I'm doing up in Pennsylvania at Pocono Organics. You're aware of that. It's one of the largest regenerative organic farms in North America. And when we start talking about the farm, yes, we talk about the fact that we're losing more than 40 soccer fields a minute of healthy soil every minute and the power of soil. But when we start talking about why the farm was actually started, and it comes from our founder who suffered from a health issue called gastroparesis, who has a paralyzed stomach. She can't digest food the way that you and I do. She's got to puree it. Doctors told her that, look, well, we can take care of you, but we're going to have to cut your stomach out and put you on feeding tubes. And she's in her late 20s, wants to start a family. And as a result of going to an organic diet and eating more nutrient-dense food, she saw undeniable health results. So when we start going down the line of that story, we start getting big brands and organizations saying, wow, I love what you're doing with the farm, but that story brings something to life in a healthy way, in a way that I can relate, because I have family members that are dealing with health issues, and the power of food is medicine. And that's how we're working now with brands, like Patagonia Provisions and Rodale Institute and the United Nations and Crop Trust. They believe in the story. They believe in the story.
Yeah. I was on a podcast just yesterday. It dropped a guy by the name of Steve Cochran. He's a longtime radio host in Chicago at WGN, powerhouse radio station, morning show guy, big audience. And he's got this new podcast that he's been doing for a while. And he had reached out to me, and we kind of talked about what it might be called. And so he had on the travel expert for CBS News, and then he had me on as well. And he was telling a story. By the way, his podcast is called Live from My Office, which is pretty funny given that everybody's kind of live from their office right now.
Yeah.
But he shared a story in our conversation. We were talking about branding and uncertain times and various things. And he was sharing the story about an AA meeting that somebody he knew was in. And he gave a visual of the things you can control. This would have been good for last week, a good story.
Yeah.
But they made somebody take a hula hoop, and stand in the middle of the hula hoop and pull the hula hoop up. So keep in mind now, you're on a podcast, you're listening to this. So there's no, right? We're creating a visual. That's what the storytelling is all about. So I'm glued in, right? I'm listening to this. Take the hula hoop and you put it around yourself. And he goes, all right, sir, whoever.
Yeah.
Stand here now. I want you to turn around through the hula hoop with your eyes focused on everything as you turn in that circle. The person does it. Says, everything that you see with that hula hoop around you as you turn in that circle are the things you can control in that moment. That is the only thing that you can truly control, is what is right there around you at that instant. And we need to start focusing on what we can do right now, what's here with us. We can't focus on the future. We can't focus on the past. We got to focus on the here and now. And there's your circle. Focus yourself on that. And the power of that story, I immediately get a visual. And that's what storytelling does if you can relate it to other people. So I love your one thing about being a power storyteller, because that's how we truly connect with people. We imagine sitting on our front porch or back porch or sitting at a restaurant or a bar, and you're just having a conversation. And somebody says, "How was your day?" Well, it's immediately a story.
Absolutely.
You're not saying it was good and you stop. You're giving some details. So here's a quote that you wanted to share with everybody. Explain this.
And it's a really simple message in this, Kraig, is that every story has power. I wanted to share that because I believe in general, but I believe that the times that we're living in right now is only amplified sort of what I call the mind trash and the brain chatter, where we start to question a lot of things, and that could even mean questioning our own story. And I wanted to just kind of reinforce and remind people that every story has power. Your story matters, and it's the matter of being able to put it together in a way that people are going to connect to. It really does require us to be intentional. You can't sit there and just hope that the words are going to come out right and they're going to be impactful. You really have to think about how you are constructing that story for the audience, but recognizing the power that it has when you're connecting on that emotional level with people.
Absolutely. This gives us a good opportunity to share what we've been doing with Jill. All right. Yeah. Nice little segue.
That's great.
Mike, Jill, and I, you can also do things with Mike and I, you can do things with Jill and I, you can do whatever, but this is what we're offering as a collective group. And that is a transformational opportunity. That's what we call it. It's a Present to Win webinar series. We hope someday to be able to be in front of people, actually in a room. I can't wait for that. That's going to be fun. And we will. There's no doubt about that. I mean, the interest that we've already gotten from some people has been spectacular. But right now, what we're offering is this. It's a webinar. You take your team, you put them in the webinar. We have a power-packed hour and a half that we deliver some things. It can be longer, it can be shorter. We customize everything, but we're going to give people a toolkit, actionable takeaways. Now, you just heard Mike talk about storytelling. I talk a lot about that as well, but not just, hey, guess what? Storytelling is important. You need to be a better storyteller. How? Right. How do you craft it? How do you put it together? How do you customize it for you? And that's one of the biggest things that I do with all of my clients, and the things that I teach in my workshops is, how do we make you your best presenter? How do we get you to tell your best stories that tie into what you're selling from a brand? I'll let you make a comment on this and then we'll move on.
Well, I'm telling you, Kraig, I mean, this is an exciting program, and we first started, building it and thinking and being, again, very intentional with what is it that we want to put forth out there. What is it? What's the experience? That's, the experience is very important, but within the experience, it's not only how are people being engaged, but it's what are the takeaways going to be. And in this case here, as we were looking at it, and what we feel is just huge value is the fact that when leaders bring in outside resources to help their team sharpen their saws and get better, typically it's for just one of the three things that we're offering here. It might just be in sales. It might just be in brand, right? It might just be in presentation. Here we're bringing three vital links in that chain of success and opportunity. So I think, again, that's just something that differentiates the work that we're doing, but also complements the voices and the experience that we bring to organizations.
Last two things I'll say about this isn't people sitting on the other side of a camera just absorbing. This isn't just a one-way dialogue here. This is an interactive, engaging, empowering, inspiring time frame where we all work together. And yes, I've got some green shoes packed up, ready to go, ready to ship off to somebody who earns one. I'll leave you with this on this. If you jump on this, folks, right now, between now and book something between now and the end of the year, and when you email at info@kannadvisory.com, there's your way to get in touch with us to set up a call with Mike and I. And all you've got to do is mention this webinar, all right? Or in the email, put hashtag elevating you. That's all you've got to do. You just got to mention that.
That's simple.
And we will provide you with a little discount on our service. Okay. And there you go. Elevating you. Put that hashtag info@kannadvisory.com. But you got to schedule it between now and the end of Q4 here in 2020. So our job is to make something positive from that. Okay. Now back to our regularly scheduled program, which is what we're talking about, and why this whole thing matters. Why having that one career skill set that you can build on matters so much. And I will tell you all this that are listening. The landscape that we are in right now, the landscape that we have been put in, that's been forced upon us, whatever you want to say, man, it demands it. It demands that you spread your wings. It demands that you find something new. It demands that you get educated, that you maybe take a class online, that you maybe, sign up for a seminar that Mike and I and Jill would do, or wherever you want to go, read a book, something to take you to another level, because there are people sitting on the sidelines that are your competition. There are people that are employed that are your competition, and you've got to find a way to leapfrog them and make yourself more marketable, more recruitable. I talk a lot about CEOs right now working to retain their top talent, but they need to retrain their top talent because they're going to be doing more with less. That is the bottom line. This is a new era. So do you have a thought on that before I move into my one thing?
Your one thing, man. Now I feel like we're back on the set of City Slickers with the Curly. He's like, you gotta have the one thing, So I would add to the demands is that there's a demand right now for all of us if we choose, because Kraig, I'm a big believer that would opportunity comes choices, but if we choose to elevate, if we choose to get that skill, it's going to demand that we get uncomfortable. And we have got to embrace the discomfort and recognize that it's only through that we're going to grow and evolve, and then ultimately make a difference in our own careers, our lives, our relationships.
Get uncomfortable. No doubt. Get comfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable.
Yes.
All right, you ready for my one big thing?
I want to hear it. I had my drum here. I do a drum roll for you, man. But just here we go.
Here you go. It's interesting. Mike talked about storytelling, and mine is it kind of jumps on board with the same thing, but it's a little bit different. Mine is to find your active voice. Now, there are a lot of people that I've come across in my work that feel like they don't have a voice. They don't have a say-so. They don't. They're not respected enough. They don't get tapped on the shoulder for something that matters. And I think finding your active voice, and active is the key word here, is so important today, because we all have an inner genius. Each and every one of you that's listening to this, if I said to you right now, take this little piece of paper, okay, and I want you to write down 5 of your greatest talents. And then I want you to write down 3 things, 3, that you believe people should know about your talents and that you could help other people with. Spin it forward, pay it forward. That's really important. Okay. I think you could come up with some things. Now, the question is, how do you find that stage? How do you get people to pay attention to you? And by having an active voice, you've got to build some platforms. Each step along the way in our career, there are building blocks. Take what you've learned from each one of them. You could draw that too. Let's say you've been in 4 jobs in your career. In each one, make 4 building blocks and put down the thing that you would be the most proud of to share with others that would help them. Not just saying, hey, this is all about me and this is what I did. Yes, that's important. I want you to be open and candid about your success stories. But what can they do to help other people? I think that's really important, finding an active voice that you can put on display. Now, with that, you've got to have a couple of things, Mike. And here's where I'm going with this. We got to have messages that add value. So in communication, which has been, really what I've done my whole career, I've done a lot of shows, I've done a lot of talks, I've done a lot of presentations, all that. The message, the overall message, is how you frame up whatever it is. In other words, if you're giving a keynote, people are going to walk out the door and they're going to say, what was his message? What was his lasting message? What am I supposed to remember? And the message is not one of many things. It is the only thing that matters. If you don't have a message, why am I hiring you to be the keynote? Why am I bringing you in? Why am I putting you on this, elevating you? Not you, Mike, but why would again,
this took a weird turn. Hold on.
He had some great messages last week.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
Jill
absolutely.
brings a lot of great messages. You impressed me from day one with the messages that you believe. So make sure, folks, that your messages add value. Now, the next one I'll comment on, and then I want to get your take on this one, is social media. Now, you just brought up earlier what I said about 5 posts or 5 tweets, and in my case, 10, and what they say about you. Now, a lot of people, they grab their phone and they tweet away, and they're watching a game or a show, and they're just, are you doing that to just fill some time, some idle time because you're bored? Or are you using social media as a tool? Because social media is a free platform. So if you have that voice, you're putting it out there, all right? Make it active. Make it active. Make it stand for something. Use those platforms to deliver something. Think about the end goal. To me, the end goal is, how do I make myself more desirable, more recruitable, more, coveted by any organization for whatever it is that I do. So if that's the case, then I better be putting things out there on the social media platforms that are worthy of somebody's attention, period. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything for me. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I like that idea of being worthy of attention. I do. And I see that really linking back to the delivering value, which then links back to being intentional with what it is that you're saying and what messages are you putting out there. Now, that's not to say that like every post has to be something that's, earth shaking and thought provoking, No,
if you're watching a NASCAR race or an Indy race, that's kind of I'm using that as a thing that you've spent a lot of time in. I want to know about what you think. That's still a big part of your audience. I mean, I tweet about golf because I'm doing shows on Sirius XM and talking golf, and I've been doing it for years. So people know that's also a part of me. Okay, keep going.
Exactly right. And I think, to your point, when people hire you in to do something, and what's the memorable or the memory from your message, I would add to that. I'd say what makes it memorable, and then what makes it actionable. Right. So where are you then taking people to connect with them at a place emotionally that's now you've just put a hook in that heart of, wow, you really got them. And they're going to remember the story or the anecdote. But then what can we do to drive towards action? Where that to me is like that magical place where we actually get to impact, where people will move towards change and organizations and people will see the difference that they're looking for.
Don't post at people. Don't talk at people. Engage with people. And you talked about this earlier, which is interesting that I have this on mine and you were discussing this earlier. We do want to be memorable. And engagement leads to being memorable. We have to have that engagement with our audience. That is super important. Again, folks, if you have questions for us, this is how you can do it. You can put them right there on the Facebook page. We'll answer them next week. Many of you have already been called, actually, if you will, and we've used your questions. We appreciate all the comments. Mike's always doing a great job of looking and seeing who's posting what. We got some stuff.
And I'm on the feed now, so if there are questions or thoughts, please put them in here. I mean, we love the engagement. We need the engagement. I mean, gosh, listening to this guy talk the whole time, for crying out loud.
Yeah, that's enough. Exactly. That would do it. info@kannadvisory.com. So my one thing, find your active voice. Find your active voice. Now, Mike had a quote earlier, and I'm going to share one as well here before we put a wrap on our one thing. Again, Mike's was be a power storyteller. I'm talking about finding your active voice. These things are very linked. We want you to, if you really dig down deep, we're talking about communicating yourself, your brand, your ideas, your visions, and not being afraid to put it out there for others to see. What I would say is this, back to the message. Is it worthy? Is it worthy? Or is it really just somebody's spam? Like there's so much out there. There is so much out there, but we've got to find a way to get people to pay attention to it. And that's the important message that I want to get across, my own message.
Mm-hmm.
So think about the things that you're putting out there, and why people should pay attention to it. Because if you're scrolling down Twitter, right? Think about this, or your Facebook page, whatever it might be, your LinkedIn feed.
LinkedIn, sure.
What makes you stop?
Mm-hmm.
What makes you stop? Is it an image? Is it a video? Is it a message? Is it a quote?
Yeah.
Those are the things, Mike, that we're trying to do. Would you not agree?
I agree 100%. And again, that's what gets back to being intentional, but then also getting back to my earlier piece about taking the message or whatever it is and looking at it from all these different angles, because we have the ability to be amazing storytellers through voice, imagery, quotes and words, right? We have to recognize that if you want to take this seriously, and I kind of want to touch back on something you had mentioned before, Kraig, but if you want to take it seriously, you realize that we all have a toolbox around us to tell stories. And we can't just keep grabbing and reaching for the same wrench every time and think that that's going to really get the attention that we're looking for. The thing that jumped out to me, Kraig, earlier is, and for those watching and have known Kraig, I mean, he's always impressed me with his just the ability to the presence and the way he speaks and comes across. That didn't happen by accident. You said it earlier. You've done countless shows. You've been out there doing this for many years. And that leads me to the thought, that's what sparks in my head, is to say, look, folks, this is a skill that if you want to learn, it takes practice, and you have to put it into play, right?
Yeah. That's the point I was making. And thank you for that. And the active voice.
Yeah.
Put your thoughts on paper. I've got in this drawer right here in my desk. I'm not going to pull it out, but it's a little black book about this big, and in it I have all my thoughts on industry things that I speak on, whether it be communications, media relations, media coaching, presentation skills, branding, social media, career, entrepreneurship. I write them down, and I make every one of them 140 characters or less, and I'm able to then turn them into quotes that I might use in a talk, a presentation. I can use them in a social media post with a graphic, whatever. So my point in sharing that with people is that my thoughts are no better than yours. Mike's got his own thoughts.
Right.
Own them. Put them on display. Make yourself an active participant in the conversation. And just because you're quote unquote a coordinator in your hierarchy of your job, or a manager as opposed to an executive VP or whatever it might be, I don't care. I mean, I was made way better in every job I ever had by people that might not have had the same title that I did, because title to me is really not as important as we would think it is. So I would say make sure your message is worthy. Okay. Now, next week, we are not going to be here because I'm traveling and spending some time in Missouri with my kids.
That's awesome.
The next time we get together, which will be in a couple of weeks, here's our topic, which is setting priorities. You want to give people a quick 15-second snapshot of what that's all about?
Yeah, in today's world, my goodness, everything feels like a major priority. And I believe that if we can take a step back and really think about where it is that we're going, or you personally, where you want to go, start setting some goals and at least put some benchmarks out there, it's going to allow you to realize that maybe some of the activities we're doing, some of the scrolling per se, right? If you think about Kraig's example before, instead of just scrolling through, social media feeds, that maybe you take that time and put it towards this new skill or this new opportunity or whatever it might be. So priorities right now, in our opinion, is vital for us to get through and thrive during these uncertain times.
Yeah. And here's a real promo still on the way. A few weeks down the road, we're going to talk about paying your experiences forward. Now, every one of us has had great experiences in our career. And this is kind of going back to what I was talking about earlier, documenting some of the success stories that you've had and how what's already happened to you can make better things happen down the road for you. I'm a big believer that opportunities don't just land in people's laps. We make opportunities based on success of the opportunity that we just had? What do we do with that? You know, I always give the example. Somebody said, "Hey, Kraig, this is when I was at the LPGA, and a player who might have said, how come I don't get to be in that press conference, that big, huge press conference coming up, or the big marketing campaign?" Well, what'd you do with the last opportunity that you were given? Did you make the most of it? Did you make a true impact for yourself, for others? And so how do we take what's happened to us, paying it forward, and making great things happen, down the road? So those are some of the topics that are coming up. The show, as you know, is always called Elevating You. And Mike, I want to leave you with an opportunity for a quick final thought.
Yeah, final thought on this, Kraig, as we're piecing all of these I think great actions together of being that power storyteller, of finding that active voice, is now put it out there, practice. I would just encourage all of you, and I've lived this myself, is be mindful of how you gauge success, especially with social media. All right. It is, and people would often ask me, hey, is it really difficult to create that video or to post that blog? Or I'd say, no, it's not.
Yeah.
The hardest part is hitting post, because now I'm putting it out there for people to see. And I found myself early on going, oh my gosh, I only got 10 likes on this. I only got 25 views on this. What's wrong? And I had to, what's that?
You have kids, right? That's all.
Yeah. Exactly. So you have to take a step back and realize that if you're playing the long game, and that's what you should be doing with your brand, is just think about the collection and the body of work that you're developing, because you'll be really surprised that with consistency and time, you're going to build up a huge body of work that's going to tell a great story, regardless of how many people like this. Someone's going to find it and will connect with them. So just put yourself out there, but don't gauge yourself by the likes.
No. I would be more worried about losing followers than gaining followers, to be perfectly honest. Keeping people, retaining people's interest is what we're after, really. That's what you want. You want to be able to provide some value that people pay attention to and will stick around for and continue to be there for you. Mm-hmm. And to me, that is the most important thing. This has been fun.
Great,
a lot of fun, as always, to do that. And Joe will be back the next time. Follow us on social media. What's your Twitter handle?
At Mike_Mooney. And that's the same for Instagram as well as Twitter. LinkedIn, just Mike Mooney.
At Kraig Kann, 2 Ks. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter, and at Kann Advisory on the others. CannAdvisory.com is the website. Jill will be back hopefully with us next time, and maybe a special guest along the way in the next couple of weeks. So This has been fun. To each and every one of you out there, thank you so much for the time and for joining us once again. And we look forward to the next time. Yes. Have a great day, everybody. Take good care.
Thanks, everyone.